Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm super duper happy to be here with you today. And I want to talk about something um, that was initially inspired by a quote. Um, well, it's been inspired by several different things, as is usual, per usual with me. But I was thinking about the famous quote. It's a story about Gandhi. And apparently, during one of the times when Gandhi had taken a vow of silence, he was on a train. And as the train was pulling out of the station, a bunch of like reporters and different people were asking him, which I thought was, I mean, which I think is kind of funny since he had taken a vow of silence and they were asking him to talk. And they're like, Gandhi, do you have anything to say to the people? And he wrote down on a piece of paper on something and he held it up to the window. Supposedly, this is the story. And on it, it said, "My life is my message." And I always thought that was such a powerful thing. And I think I even did, I don't know. I mean, I'm like 293 episodes in. I don't remember like everything I've talked about, but I think I did a podcast even one time that was called Your Life is Your Message, which is really him saying that you know, it's not so much, it doesn't matter so much about like what I'm saying. It's about who I've been being. Like my life has been my message. Like I'm trying to be and live my values and what really matters to me. And what my message is I'm trying to like live this thing, which I think is really great. Okay. Today's episode is called Your Life is a Reflection. And I want to talk about this idea that our life is a reflection. And what I mean by this is our current situations are often and usually a result of our past choices. It's a result of like the current state of our life, including like our experiences, our relationships, the state of our relationships, the choices, all those things directly reflect the person or people that we have kind of like developed into over time. The people that we have become. Okay. So the current kind of state of where we're at is showcasing kind of this like cumulative effect, this cumulative like impact of our past thinking, our decisions, our actions, our behaviors, our experiences. Now, it's wicked important for me to say this caveat though, because one of the things that I think happens in, again, personal development work or change work or mindset work or spiritual work is we say these kind of like one-liners, right? These quirky little like headlines, like these attention grabbing head, oh, your life is a reflection. And we like to like simplify things because here in a podcast, right, we often don't have. I mean, sometimes we do. I've done episodes that were like an hour, 2 hours long when I had a guest, etc. But we cannot cover the truth of everybody's experiences. There's always going to be exceptions. There's always going to be nuances. There's always going to be caveats to things, right? So it's really easy for me to just say like, oh, your life is a reflection of who you've been. So here's the part that's important that I want you to hear up front. Your life is also, and where you're at right now, is also a reflection of not just who I have been, right? Or who you have been. It's also a reflection how, in your earliest years, how other people have been. It's also a reflection of systems of oppression that exist in this world, whether people want to deny it or not, right? The fact that some of us have had different starting points. I often think about, I just watched on online on Netflix the show Sprint. And it's about these incredible athletes, like the fastest track runners like in the world and their journey of where they were, how they got to the Olympics and stuff like that. And I'm always fascinated by people who are brilliant at what they do. And there's certain races, like not when, like not at like the 100, like the 100-meter one, they all start at the same line, the same starting blocks. But in other races, because of the way a track is designed, some people start, it looks like, in different positions. And that's how it kind of is in life, is that people like at the starting line, like the real starting line, right? There are other people who are born with a shit ton of privilege and they're way ahead of the pack. And then there are people who are at a totally different starting line. So I just wanted to say this, that I recognize that, because a lot of times it can feel like when we say to people, you're responsible for this and you've got to take control of that. And you got to, yes, and yes, your life is a reflection of who you have been. And, right, there's a lot of other stuff that kind of goes with it. But the reason why I want to talk about your life as a reflection is because the reality of it is that we often cannot do anything about how other people have chosen to behave, what other people are doing, what other people, other systems are doing. What we do have control over, right? For the most part. I mean, of course, there are also, again, there's caveats to everything. Like some people who might have undiagnosed or uncontrolled, like unhelped at this moment, like mental illness, things like that. Okay. But for the most part, what I would say is that our life is a reflection of who we have been, how we have been, right? And this is like our thinking, our beliefs, our stories, our identities, the choices we've made. It's the cumulative effect of our past thinking, our decisions, our actions, and stuff like that. And it's often like when we think about karma, some people think about karma like, karma is like, oh, you're gonna, you did something bad, karma's gonna get you, as if it's like almost personal. And I kind of think of karma as being more universal. I think of karma more like science, right? Which is like, it's just simply cause and effect. That's how I think of karma. And so much of the results that we're experiencing, the effect right now, when I think about this concept that your life is a reflection of who you have been, it's about we are currently experiencing the effects of our causal choices and actions and thoughts and whatever. It's like it catches up to us. It's not like things automatically, like, there is like instant karma, like you touch a hot stove, you get burned, right? Like that's like, oh, cause I touched, effect, I got burned, right? Sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes it's not always so immediate. Sometimes the universe just kind of takes its time and things catch up gradually. I would say gradually, but inevitably, we will awaken to the truth of ourselves, right? Gradually, but inevitably, hopefully, we move from a thought system of fear to love. But there are some things that are pretty immediate. And so karma is this cause and effect. So we often, though, and this is why I want to talk about it, sometimes it is immediate, right? And this is how we think sometimes. We often attribute the experience that we're having right now to what we think we're doing right now, right? But it's like, yes, and yes, that is true. Okay. To some extent, things are still being influenced by what we are doing currently, but even more so, right? It's also who we are being right now. Okay. So to some extent, what we're experiencing right now is a result of exactly what we're doing and who we're being right now. However, there's a but here. But, okay, outcomes and results really are the accumulation of that which has also happened over time. And I can give you a couple of examples of this, right? So when you think about like trying to build muscle, let's say, okay, it doesn't happen immediately. But if you're consistent and you continue to do that, right, going to the gym, whether you count your macros or you're just mindful of what you put in your body, you're getting enough rest, you're drinking good water, like all this stuff, right? Drinking water, like taking good care of yourself, all these things, right? When you do this, the results over time are a reflection of the choices you've been making and who you've been being. Like I've been being, right? Like maybe this is you. I've been being somebody who gets up and gets their ass to the gym or goes for a run or I watch, I'm mindful of what I eat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Maybe you're somebody who has a DSP, a daily spiritual practice, and you've been doing it over the years. So your spiritual muscles have grown, and your ability now to move through the world, maybe with more joy or more happiness or more peace or more patience or compassion and kindness and empathy and standing your sacred ground and the ability to speak up for injustices and use your voice, et cetera, whatever it is a result. It is an effect of the causal action of you getting up every day and doing your DSP. So what I want you to look at is that the results that we are getting, the reflection that we are getting in our life is based on who we have been being and the choices that we've been making. And this also applies to habits as well, right? Our habits are an accumulation of like who and how we've been and what we've been thinking about and the decisions we've made, right? It's like your habits don't just like happen overnight. They are done through repetition. So eventually our habits, our addictions, our patterns, our things are a reflection, right, of who we've been. And the accumulation of who we've been basically equals our life, right? Like who this is what your life is how you're interacting in the world, right? The choices that you're making, the relationships that you're having, who you're spending time with, where you're working, like all these things, what you're creating. This is your life. And it's a reflection of, again, I'm starting to sound repetitive, but it's an accumulation. It's the effects of our causal ways of being in the world. And this is important because it can be really easy to just give up on ourselves and to say, this is how I've always been. This is just the way it is, right? And I just don't believe that. You know, in 12-step programs, I was in back in the day, I had gone to Al-Anon and I learned a lot of things. I've said this before. I learned a lot of things. You think you're going to go into Al-Anon to learn a lot of things about alcoholics, right? The people in your life that you're in relationship with, but really when you go to Al-Anon, you end up really learning about a lot about yourself. So, I've been around, right, the AA scene and Al-Anon. And as they say in AA, there's a saying that they say, like, you can't build a better past. And that means like you can't go back and change things. What's happened is happened. Like you can't go back and because healing, as we say in A Course in Miracles, healing doesn't happen in the past. Healing happens in the present moment. Healing happens now. We can certainly like go back, talk about some things, like, try to reason and figure out like, oh, what happened? Why did that happen? All those things we love to contemplate. But that's not where the healing's going to happen. The healing is going to happen in the present moment, in the presence of love. That's where healing's going to happen. Okay. So in AA, they say you can't go back and, build a better past. Meaning what I'm saying is if our life is the result, is the reflection of who we've been, maybe some of what we're getting right now, we don't love. And we can't go back and change that. But the fantastic news is, and this is also something that they say in 12-step programs, you can start your day over again right now. You can start your day over again at any time, right? And so I'm really into I like preventative action, right? A lot of the work that I do is based on this premise of like, well, now what? Like, I'm kind of like the what now lady. I'm like, now what? Like, now what are we going to do? Right? Because we can go back and try to dig up all that stuff. And there is times when that's totally appropriate, right? To understand part of knowing where you're going is knowing where you're coming from, right? We go back and we look at it, but that's not where the change and the healing is going to happen. Right? So I'm more into preventative action rather than having to do, oh, Jesus, clean up in aisle 7 again, right? Clean up in aisle 3, pickles off the shelf again, It's like, no, why don't we, right, do some causal action so that we can get different results, so we can have a different reflection, so that we can restart our day right now, so that what we're experiencing as we're coming into the new year, right? Now, again, I always say, you might be listening to this in October or March or whatever, right? But I'm recording this as we're entering like a new year. So, you can restart your day at any time. If you're looking forward and you're like, I want to feel differently, I want to dwell in the realm of the possibility of feeling differently, being different, feeling better, right? Having more joy, having more happiness, having more tools to navigate this life, which is like, right, the work that I do. You can restart your day at any time. The first thing you have to recognize, though, is what I always say, like the first step is like you got to slow the fuck down. Because if you don't slow down enough, you don't even recognize that the water is rising around your ankles and then it's at your shins and then it's at your knees, right? Like you don't even realize like the shitstorm you have gotten yourself in. So the first thing is we got to slow down so that we can first of all recognize that things aren't really that great. You know what I mean? And then we have to have the ability to just stop. To like, bam, hit the pause button, like, and just stop for a moment. And once we recognize, oh my God, like, first of all, take a look around, need to make a change. I'm going to restart my day, right? First, we're going to pay attention. We're going to slow down. We're going to stop. We're going to pause. And then, because we want to make new decisions or intentions or whatever, from a place where we're not hijacked by our fear, we're not caught up in the trauma response of whatever your particular way of responding tends to be, we want to pause and take a really good deep breath, right? Take a series of deep breaths. I always say breathe in 4 to the count of 4 through your nose, and then breathe out to the count of 8 twice as long through your mouth with sound, right? There's lots of different sounds you can make, just like breathing out, just slowing down. And then you just simply take kind of a moment to reflect, take a look around, reflect on what you've been thinking, right? Because so much of what we believe, what we think, is what's creating our experience. We all know that. We have all had a shift in perception at some point in our life where we were like, oh, and it's literally like the lights went on. Like we were stumbling around in the dark and all of a sudden we had a shift in perception. It was like, oh, we realized some things, right? And so we want to take a moment to reflect on how we've been thinking, how we've been feeling, how we've been being, you know what I mean? And then we have an opportunity to reset our mindset. When you think about that word mindset, it's about your mind has been set in a very particular way. And now we want to reset that mindset to actually be working in your favor. Because a lot of times we're patterned with beliefs and identities and stories, right? That are not setting us up for our best possible outcomes, for the good results, right? For the effects that we actually want to be having in our life, in our relationship with ourselves and with other people. So we have an opportunity to reset our mindset, ask ourselves some reflective questions, and then we can intentionally choose how we want to spend the rest of our day. And A Course in Miracles talks about this. It says, like, when you first wake up in the morning, you can choose the kind of day that you want to have. Like, you intentionally set your mind. I'm not saying it's always going to go exactly that way, but man, we can start our day with the positive intention, with the intention to lead with love, to be more patient, whatever the thing is, right, that you feel like you need more of. And essentially, like, you're making a conscious decision to approach the remaining time that you have left in your 24 hours, but also maybe in your life with a fresh perspective and new intentions, right? So that you can do a little preventative kind of effort. If your life has been reflecting things to you that you don't like, that you're not proud of, that don't feel in alignment with your values or who you truly are, or where you want to be, or how you want to be living and loving and all of these things, it is never too late to change, to have a different, to allow life to reflect something new. And so we have to start making different choices now for ourselves so that what's kind of coming down the pike, right? And we start doing it now, and it can be really easy. Now, look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't take time during the winter and at the end of the year to just simply rest. It's not like I want to feel like I'm always giving you more homework and you got to do all this work on yourself or whatever. Like, people can take some of this, leave the rest. Take what works, apply it, leave the rest, right? I am not at all into like hustle culture and always got to be productive and da 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 da. But I will say that we do have to kind of watch our minds like a hawk. And life is always revealing to us, right, who we have been. I really do believe this, and I think that while we still have some time left, we have a few more weeks left at the end of the year. Why wait until January 1st rolls around to like then be like, well, now I'm going to do all this stuff. What if we just took a little bit of time right now to start to be a little reflective and a little preventative so that when the new year rolls around, we're already building a little momentum in the right direction. So we start to think about things now instead of just like throwing our hands up and giving up and saying like, fuck it, I'll wait till I'll just wait till January. Maybe we take a little time right now to dream and to visualize how we want to move forward, who we want to be, so that we are being causal in a way that's going to produce effects that we actually want. Does that make sense? Like taking time right now. Because if our current experience is a reflection of our past choices, our thinking, our actions, and our ways of being, then if we want to have something different coming down the pike, maybe we have to take time right now to consider how we might want to be different, show up different, right? Maybe we want to get, some support or join a community or have a mentor or go to therapy or start going to the gym or get a coach or whatever the thing is. Read some books, slow down, like really just get off of autopilot and start to be wicked intentional about who and how we want to be. And, in chapter 21 of A Course in Miracles, there's this great passage that I want to share with you. And I've talked about this before about how projection makes perception, like meaning like how we think in our mind, right? The internal world is creating our experience in the external world. We project out onto the world and then we perceive it back and we think, oh, I'm at the effect of the world. The world is the cause of my suffering. It's all the stuff out there that's making me feel this way, be this way, da da da. I'm not saying, hear me loud and clear, that things that happen outside of us that are beyond our control don't have effects on us. I'm not saying that. We can't often control what happens in the world, but we can change how we think about the world. What's in our control is how we're responding to what happens in the world. So, this little passage, chapter 21, it says, projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. Meaning, again, what we're seeing in the world is the projection that what we've given it, like what we've projected onto the world. Okay. And it goes on to say, the world is a witness to your state of mind. It is the outside picture of an inward condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. Because perception is a result, it's a reflection and not a cause. Perception is an effect. And when you really think about this, it's incredibly powerful because it puts some of the impetus and the power and the control, right, back into and responsibility, right, like back into ourselves. So if I want to, and again, it can be anything. It can be like, I want to save more money in 2025. I want to, get in better shape. Like, I want to have more strength. I want to have more rest. I want to have better sleep. I want to have better, more connected relationships, like whatever it is. If currently what your life is reflecting to you is some shit that you are done with, you are over, you are not feeling it, you don't want it, you want it to be different, then we have to make some conscious choices of who and how we are going to be. And we can't wait around, if you haven't listened to that whole episode, my Be Do Have episode, right? So often people are like, well, once I have this, right? So, hold on one second. Oops. Hey, thank you for sticking with me. I paused because I wanted to grab the book Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain, because that's where this concept comes from. And it's always really important to me that I give credit, and I wanted to make sure that I said it exactly the way that she says it, because that's where it comes from. So she says this, she says, often people attempt to live their lives backwards. They try to have more things or more money in order to do more of what they want so that they will be happier. So what they're really doing, she's saying, is that they try to have, do, be, right? Their process is have, do, be. I'm going to try to have more things and more money in order to do more of what I want, so then I'll be happier. But the way it actually works, she says, is in reverse. You must first be who you really are, like your true self, that self as the divine created you to be, which really is just love, right? That's who you are, is love. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. You must first be who you really are and then do what you need to do in order to have what you want. So you want to connect with your beingness, who you really are. And that's going to help you focus and facilitate your doingness, what you're doing in the world. And this is going to increase and expand your havingness. And this is what I'm talking about. Your life has been a reflection of what you have been doing, the things that you've been having, and how you've been being. And so sometimes we need to like tweak those things a little bit, you know? And if your life, again, like I said, is not reflecting shit back to you that you really love, and now some of it I get, some things are outside of our control. A lot of the things that happened to us when we were children, when we were younger, when we were at the mercy of other people, were outside of our control. But now we can choose how we want to relate to, interpret the meaning and the purpose we've given to those things. As adults, we now get to take our power back and choose who we want to be. And I want your life to be reflecting back. Like my hope for you, my wish for you is that your life reflects back to you just how loved you are, just how beautiful and loving and lovable and enough and creative and capable and strong and brilliant that you are. And so we have to kind of shift sometimes out of maybe who we've been spending a lot of time with, how we've been spending our money, how we've been thinking, the patterns and the habits that we've created. And this is so much about like the work that I do in the world with people to be helpful. Again, I can't stress it enough. It's not like, oh my God, you have so much work to do on yourself. Like you're a mess. You need to fix yourself. It's not that. It's like these little subtle tweaks. You know, have you ever looked through a kaleidoscope and you just shift it? You know, when we were kids, we looked through these kaleidoscopes and you would just shift it a tiny smidge. And it was like, all of a sudden we had a whole new perspective, a whole new beautiful picture. So much of this is just creating shifts in perception, shifting out of thought systems of fear and moving more into thought systems of love, gathering more tools that will help us to navigate both. Like, and this is the thing. I always say it's not woo woo, it's true, true, right? I'm talking about not just like, oh, it's spiritual principles. Yes, and scientific, subconsciously, we know that I am into practical tools to help us shift, right? I gave you one here earlier, right? When you can't build a better past, here's how you start your day over again. It's like 6 or 7 steps, right? And they're fast, they're quick. It's like you pause, you notice, like, oh, I'm about to do that thing, or oh, I've done this thing so many times before. I already know this outcome. This is not going to end well. This is going to be like my causal thought or belief or action or words, the things that are coming out of my mouth is going to create an effect that I already know I don't want. And my life has already been showing me this is not what I want. So, what am I willing to do different, think different, say different, be different? Right? Because your life can be a beautiful reflection and it starts from the inside out. Our life is often reflecting back to us what we have thought, what we think, what we say, who we've been, who we're being. And we get to tweak that, change that, adjust that, expand that, rewrite it, flip it, whatever we want to call it. I always say, like, your life is a story, Write well and edit often, right? Write well and edit often. And this is part of that process. So I hope this has somehow been helpful for you. It's gotten you to think. I always say I'm not here to tell you what to think, but I do always want to invite people into thinking differently, to just maybe get like wicked curious. That's really what the show is about, is spreading more love and talking about things in a way that maybe people lean in and get a little curious and think, huh, hadn't thought about it that way, or maybe da 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 da, right? I always say I want this show to either educate, elevate, enlighten, or entertain, to enrich people's lives. That's what I'm hoping that I'm able to do through this show. And here's the thing, man. Like the things that I share on the show, I always say, like, you don't have to take my word for it. I want my clients, I want the people in the nest, I want everybody to find things out for themselves. I'm going to share some things. I'm going to drop some spiritual breadcrumbs. I'm going to say, this is what worked for me. Here are some tools. Here's a way of looking at it, blah, blah. Ask some good questions, right? Because you have the answers inside of you. Like nobody knows you better than you. You have your own internal teacher, but sometimes we forget that and we need people outside of us to help us remember who we really are and how resourceful we are and to help us out. And that's what I love to do. But I always say, don't take my word for it, because I want you to gather your own evidence. I want your experience to be your own proof. I want your experience of trying these things for yourself to become your evidence. That's what I'm into. So I hope this has been helpful in some way. I super duper appreciate you. I appreciate you tuning in and listening. And if you are one of my listeners, and look, I think I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it on last week's podcast that I'm going to be starting to offer online yoga. So right now, the plan is I'm going to start with one class and see how it goes. And hopefully if enough people are like into it and we're digging it. I mean, I had a TV show for 13 years, so I know how to teach online. Like, I'm not worried about that. It's just that I think people sometimes are afraid to try new things. But I just want to say to you, like, if you're at all curious and if you're on my email list, you're going to be the first to like get the sign up link and stuff like that. So if you're not already on my list, go to karenkenney.com/sign up. You can also just shoot me a message and stuff like that, because I still have to figure out like what I know what the first link is going to be, but like the direct link to like sign up, I don't have that yet. I'll have it this afternoon. So, but I think it's just you could probably just find it by going to karenkenney.com/yoga. Like that might first take you to the page. We'll see. I guess I should check that before I send you there and screw everything up. I'm doing it right now. I'm typing as fast as I can. Oh, real time. Yeah. Okay. So I got to go in and tweak this, but yeah, you can go to karenkenney.com/yoga. I gotta tweak that. But that's where the link will eventually be, where you can find it out. But if you're interested in doing that, I would love to have you join me. It's going to be on Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern time, my time. It'll be over Zoom. And I'll be telling you more about it, like I said, in the email, and maybe on the next episode, I'll have more. I think the first class is going to be on January 7th. So we got a little time. We got a little time for you to get the details and get everything you need, like a yoga mat, some blocks, a strap, all that stuff. But I'm wicked excited to do it. And it's going to allow me to share my love of yoga and this practice that I love, that has been so incredibly helpful in healing in my own life. With so many other people. And it's one of the reasons why I had a TV show for so long, is I wanted to be able to bring yoga to people who maybe otherwise could not get to a class in person. So I feel like I'm kind of going back to my roots a little bit, which is wicked exciting. So, I mean, of course, I love teaching in person. I'm going to also be doing that in 2025. I have a class coming up in January at Yoga from the Hat in Laconia, so that in New Hampshire. So that's going to be wicked fun. I think that's on January 10th. Anywho, thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking around this long. I hope that, we start to find, if your life already is not reflecting beautiful things back to you, that we can start to do some things now, build a little momentum as we're going into the new year, so that when we hit January, we're not starting from behind. Like, we've already been thinking about these things, starting to implement maybe a couple of things, right? Just even if you just think one new like habit per quarter of the year, like, just like habits set gradually and slowly, but just start with something that feels really important to you. And let's just start to think about it and daydream and visualize and put some things into action. I'm really into practical application. So let's see how it goes. And let's see what starts to be reflected back to us in 2025. I'll be wicked curious to hear from you. But gather your own evidence, find out for yourself, let your own experience, right, show you, and not just take my word for it. Okay. But thanks for listening. Okay. I appreciate you. Wherever you go, right, may you leave yourself and the animals and the people and the planet, the environment better than how you first found it. Wherever you go, may you be a blessing. Bye.